what we fear and what makes us feel insecure often manifest as hatred towards others. This bold statement marks the start of our journey today, a journey into the heart of human emotions, exploring the intricate dance between fear, insecurity, and hatred. These emotions, so raw and primal, are a part of the human experience, but they can also lead to division and conflict. Yet, what if we could turn the tides? What if, by understanding and addressing these fears and insecurities, we could nurture greater empathy, compassion, and connection with others? Imagine a world where we do not hide from our vulnerabilities, but rather embrace them, using them as a bridge to understand and connect with those around us. This is the objective of our discussion today. We'll delve into these emotions, dissecting their roots and their impact on our relationships. The journey may not be easy, but it promises to be enlightening. Today, we aim to delve into these emotions and explore the transformative power of empathy. Fear and insecurity are primal emotions deeply ingrained in our psyche. They are the undercurrents that can steer the course of our lives, often in directions we'd rather not explore. Like unseen puppeteers, they pull on our strings, dictating our reactions, our decisions, our very perception of the world around us. When we look at fear and insecurity, we're essentially looking at responses to perceived threats. These threats can range from the tangible, such as physical danger, to the intangible, like a blow to our self-esteem. The fear of uncertainty can leave us paralyzed, stuck in the mire of indecision. Insecurity, on the other hand, can be triggered by a multitude of factors. The fear of vulnerability, of showing our true selves, and the fear of rejection, of not being accepted for who we are, can all lead to feelings of insecurity. The specter of failure, too, can loom large, causing us to question our self-worth and capabilities. Now, these primal emotions don't just exist in a vacuum. They have a way of seeping into our behaviors, often leading to defensive reactions. Picture a hedgehog, its quills raised in response to a threat. That's us. When fear and insecurity take hold, we might avoid situations or people that make us uncomfortable. We might become aggressive, lashing out in an attempt to protect ourselves. We might even develop prejudices, stereotyping those who we perceive as threats. In essence, fear and insecurity can distort our lens of the world, making us see threats where there are none. It can make us build walls, distancing ourselves from others. But these walls, while giving us a sense of safety, can also isolate us, cutting us off from meaningful connections. Fear and insecurity can often lead us to react in ways that are far from our true nature. But remember, realizing this is the first step towards change. By understanding our fears and insecurities, we can start to dismantle these walls brick by brick and open ourselves up to more authentic, compassionate connections. We often hate what we fear and what makes us feel insecure. A profound statement, isn't it? It's an uncomfortable truth that fear and insecurity can lead to feelings of animosity, even hatred. But to understand why this is, we must first explore how these emotions trigger a sense of threat or vulnerability in us. Fear and insecurity are primal emotions, deeply rooted in our survival instincts. We fear what we cannot control or predict, what challenges our sense of safety and stability. Insecurity, on the other hand, arises from a sense of inadequacy, a feeling that we are not enough, that we are lacking in some way. When these emotions take hold, they can make us feel vulnerable, threatened, and on edge. Now imagine being in such a state of heightened alertness and uncertainty. It's an uncomfortable place to be, isn't it? And in this state, we may find ourselves reacting with hostility towards those who evoke these feelings of fear or insecurity in us. It could be someone who challenges our beliefs, someone who succeeds where we have failed, or someone who simply represents what we fear or feel insecure about. For instance, think about someone who is exceptionally talented or successful in an area where you feel inadequate. Instead of admiring their achievements, you might feel a twinge of resentment or even hostility towards them. Why? Because they are a living, breathing reminder of your own insecurities. They are a mirror reflecting back at you what you fear you lack. This reaction, while not the most admirable, is a common defense mechanism. And it's not just about individual people. It can also apply to groups, ideas, or situations that trigger our fears or insecurities. This is where the role of projection comes into play. Projection is a psychological defense mechanism where we attribute our own unwanted feelings or traits onto someone else. It's like casting a shadow of our fears and insecurities onto others. And in doing so, we can distance ourselves from our own uncomfortable emotions. We can say, it's not me, it's them. But here's the thing, projection can lead to scapegoating and discrimination. If we're not careful, we can find ourselves blaming others for our own fears and insecurities, casting them as the villains in our story. This can fuel prejudice, discrimination, and even hatred. Recognizing this link between fear, insecurity, and hatred is a profound revelation. It's like shining a light on the shadows of our psyche, revealing the true source of our negative emotions and reactions. But why is this so important? Well, understanding is the first step towards change. By acknowledging the role of fear and insecurity in our feelings of hatred, we can start to address these root causes. We can learn to manage our fears, build our self-esteem, and cultivate empathy and understanding towards those who trigger these emotions in us. In the end, it's not about eliminating fear and insecurity altogether. These are natural human emotions that we all experience. But by recognizing their influence on our attitudes and behaviors, we can choose to respond differently. We can choose empathy over hatred, understanding over prejudice, and compassion over discrimination. Recognizing this link between fear, insecurity, and hatred is the first step towards change. Embracing vulnerability is a pathway to empathy, compassion, and connection with others. It's not always easy, it's often uncomfortable, but it's a journey worth taking. Vulnerability is like the raw, untouched soil of our inner landscape. It's where our growth begins. Empathy is a transformative power that has the potential to break down barriers, shatter illusions, and bridge gaps between individuals. It's like a magical elixir that can turn strangers into friends and conflicts into understanding. But how does empathy work? It begins with vulnerability. It's when we bare our souls, share our fears, and expose our insecurities that we create a space for empathy to flourish. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror. The reflection you see is not just your own, but also a reflection of every person you've ever met, every story you've ever heard, every pain you've ever felt. This is empathy. It's the ability to step into someone else's shoes, to feel their joy and their pain, to understand their perspective not as an observer, but as a participant in their human experience. But here's the twist. Empathy isn't just about understanding others, it's also about understanding ourselves. It's about cultivating self-compassion, about acknowledging our own fears, insecurities, and vulnerabilities. It's about recognizing that we too are human, we too are flawed. We too are beautifully imperfect. Vulnerability then is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of courage. It's the courage to be real, to be authentic, to be you. It's the courage to say, this is me with all my strengths and all my weaknesses, with all my triumphs and all my failures, and I am worthy of love and acceptance just as I am. So let's choose to embrace our vulnerability. Let's choose to cultivate empathy, not just for others, but also for ourselves. Let's choose to see vulnerability not as a threat, but as an opportunity for connection, for growth, for love. By opening ourselves up to vulnerability, we open the door to empathy and compassion. We open the door to a richer, deeper, more meaningful human experience, and that, dear friends, is a door worth opening. Fear and insecurity are universal emotions, but they don't have to control us. They can be catalysts for change, pathways to understanding, and the keys to unlocking empathy and compassion. As we've journeyed through this exploration, let's take a moment to reflect. How do your own fears and insecurities shape your attitudes and behaviors? How do they influence your interactions and relationships with others? Remember, it's not about eradicating these emotions. That's an impossible task. It's about understanding them, acknowledging them, and ultimately controlling their impact on our lives. When we let go of fear and insecurity, we open ourselves up to vulnerability. And it is in this vulnerability that we can truly connect with others, fostering empathy, understanding, and compassion. By embracing vulnerability and empathy, we can transcend fear and insecurity and cultivate deeper connections and compassion in our interactions with others. Let this be the new lens through which you view your world. Your relationships, your self-understanding, and your life as a whole can only benefit